In America, taking a year off work to raise your newborn is called career suicide. In Norway, it's called Tuesday. Here's the thing that broke my brain. The average Norwegian parent receives $46,000 in direct government payments during parental leave. Not loans. Not tax credits you'll see next April. Cold, hard cash deposited into your account while you're literally learning how to change diapers. And that's just benefit number 7 on this list. I'm an American. I've spent the last 50 hours deep in OECD databases, Norwegian government white papers, and comparative tax models for this investigation. And I need you to understand something. We're not talking about nice-to-haves here. We're talking about structural differences so massive that they fundamentally rewrite what it means to be middle class. By the end of this video, I'm going to show you a single Norwegian policy area that contributes to Norwegians living 6 years longer than Americans on average. And no, it's not just healthcare. The system is far more interconnected than that. But first, you need to see the full picture. This is exactly why we built Nexora. Most channels give you headlines. We give you the spreadsheets behind the headlines. The uncomfortable data. The comparisons that make you question why we've accepted normal as inevitable. If you're tired of surface-level noise and want the raw numbers that explain why our systems work the way they do, or why they don't, join the Nexora residents by hitting subscribe right now. Because what we're about to uncover isn't just interesting. It's the kind of information that changes how you vote, how you plan your future, and how you measure success itself. Let's look under the hood of the system. Benefit number 1. The free money for school program, StudyStat. Alright, let's start with something that sounds fake. In Norway, if you're a full-time student, the government pays you to go to school. Not your parents. Not through loans. They pay you directly. Here's the breakdown. Every Norwegian student receives approximately $12,500 per year while attending university. That's about $1,250 per month during the academic year. About 40% of that is a grant if you're living away from parents and passing your courses. You never have to pay it back. The other 60%? It's a loan, but here's where it gets interesting. If you graduate on time and pass your exams, 40% of that loan converts to a grant. So let me translate this into American terms. Imagine getting a $12,500 annual stipend just for being a student. Now imagine that a significant portion of the debt disappears when you finish your degree on time. The average Norwegian student graduates with roughly $27,500 in debt. The average American? Try $37,000. But here's the kicker, that Norwegian debt comes with a 4.68% to 5.13% interest rate set by the government, which is still competitive but has risen from historic lows. In America, federal student loans are sitting at 5.5% to 7.5% right now, and private loans can hit double digits. Do the math. Even with current rates, Norwegian students benefit from government-backed terms, income-adjusted repayment, and a culture that doesn't treat education as a luxury product. American students are choosing majors based on loan payback potential, not passion. But the real difference isn't just the money. It's the psychology. Norwegian students aren't taking second jobs during finals week. They're not rationing meals to make rent. They're just learning. And here's what Americans don't realize. This isn't charity. It's strategy. Research shows that investments in tertiary education generate returns of approximately $7 to $10 in GDP for every dollar invested over a graduate's lifetime. Norway isn't being nice. They're being smart. Look, if you're the kind of person who hears a stat like that and immediately thinks, wait, but what about the sustainability? What about the incentives? What about the system that makes this possible? You're one of us. You're not here for dopamine hits. You're here because you're obsessed with understanding why the world works the way it does. Hit subscribe and join thousands of others who refuse to accept, because that's how we've always done it, as an answer. We're about to get into benefits that most Americans have literally never heard of. Let me hit you with 3 benefits in rapid fire, because they're connected. Benefit number 2, mandatory 5 weeks paid vacation. Not unlimited PTO, that nobody actually uses. Not accrued days that disappear if you don't fight for them. 25 days of paid vacation. By law. For everyone. Your barista gets it. Your CO gets it. And if your employer tries to guilt you out of taking it, that's illegal. The average American gets 11 days and uses 8 of them while checking email on the beach. Benefit number 3. Unlimited paid sick leave. In Norway, if you're sick, you stay home. You get paid. For as long as you're sick. Your employer covers the first 16 days at 100% salary. After that, the government takes over and pays you through the national insurance scheme. There's no earned sick time bank. There's no panic about losing your job because you got the flu during Q4. In America, 34 million workers have 0 paid sick days. None. So they go to work sick, get their coworkers sick, and the economy loses $160 billion annually in productivity. We've somehow convinced ourselves that punishing illness is personal responsibility. Benefit number 4. The unemployment safety net that actually works. If you lose your job in Norway, you receive 62.4% of your previous salary for up to 2 years while you find new work. And during that time, you still have health care. Your kids still go to school. You don't lose your apartment. In America, unemployment maxes out at $600 per week in most states, before taxes, lasts about 26 weeks, and comes with the constant terror of losing health insurance. Here's what these 3 benefits actually create. Freedom to take risks. Norwegians switch careers at twice the rate of Americans. They start businesses at higher rates. They leave toxic jobs. Because the safety net isn't a trap, it's a trampoline. And that brings us to the most misunderstood benefit on this list. Before we go further, I need to pause for a reality check. Because here's a stat that flipped my entire understanding of this system. Norwegians pay an effective tax rate of about 30% to 40% when you include income tax and their 25% VAT. Americans? We're at 25% to 35% federally, but then add state taxes, bringing us to 30 to 45% total effective, healthcare premiums, out-of-pocket medical costs, student loans, childcare, and retirement savings. When you add it all up, middle-class Americans are functionally paying comparable amounts. We're just paying it to dozens of different entities instead of one integrated tax system that delivers guaranteed services. So here's my question for you, and I want you to really think about this. Would you rather have $10,000 more in your pocket annually but zero safety net, one medical emergency away from bankruptcy, or consolidate those payments into a tax system that guarantees total security for you and your family? Tell me in the comments. I'm reading every single one, because this is the philosophical divide that explains everything. Benefit number 5. Universal childcare for $185 per month. In Norway, every child aged 1 to 5 has a guaranteed spot in government-subsidized daycare. The cost? Capped at $185 per month regardless of your income, with further reductions for low-income families. In America, the average cost of infant care is $1,400 per month. In cities? Try $2,500. That's more than college tuition in some states. So Norwegian parents, both of them, go back to work if they want to, because childcare doesn't consume 40% of one person's salary. This isn't just family policy. It's economic policy. Norway's female workforce participation rate for prime working age, 25 to 54, is 85%. America's is 77%. That 8-point gap represents trillions in lost economic potential and tax revenue. Benefit number 6. The housing stability policy that extends lives. Remember when I mentioned Norwegians living 6 years longer on average? Housing stability is a massive piece of that puzzle. Norway has rent control, strong tenant protections, and public housing investments so robust that housing costs average 22% of disposable income. In the US, we're at 32% officially, but many urban renters hit 40 to 50%. But here's the health connection. Housing instability is one of the strongest predictors of chronic stress, cardiovascular disease, and premature death. Studies show that severe housing cost burden increases mortality risk by 2 to 5%, and the stress of housing insecurity can reduce life expectancy by 1 to 2 years on its own. Norwegians aren't living longer just because of their genes or healthcare. They're living longer because they're not choosing between rent and groceries. Because they're not experiencing the chronic cortisol elevation that comes from housing precarity. The total life expectancy gap, Norway at 83 years versus America at 77, is 6 years. Housing stability, combined with healthcare access, food security, and lower violence, all compound to create that gap. Benefit number 7. The parental leave system that makes Silicon Valley look like Dickensian England. This is the $46,000 I mentioned at the start. Norwegian parents get 49 weeks of paid leave at 100% salary, or 59 weeks at 80%. Both parents. And dads are required to take at least 15 weeks or the family loses that time entirely. The payments are capped at about $66,000 in annual salary, 6G in the Norwegian system, but for the median Norwegian household earning around $54,000, that works out to roughly $46,000 in total payments over the leave period when you account for both parents' shared leave. In America, we have FMLA, 12 weeks of unpaid leave if you're lucky enough to work for a company with 50-plus employees. So Norwegian kids get a full year with both parents. American kids get whatever we can cobble together between vacation days, sick leave, and financial panic. And before you say, but small businesses can't afford that. The Norwegian government pays for this, not employers. Companies aren't choosing between hiring and parental leave. The system removes that conflict entirely. We're currently mapping what we're calling the Human Happiness Index, a series of deep dives into why some countries consistently rank at the top of quality of life metrics while others are struggling. This video is part of that investigation. Next, we're breaking down Norway's prison system, which has a 20% recidivism rate compared to America's 68%. The data is shocking, and it's going to make you rethink everything you believe about crime and punishment. If you don't want to miss that, and trust me, you don't, subscribe now. It's the only way to ensure the algorithm keeps you in this loop. Because YouTube doesn't reward depth. It rewards clicks. But we're not here for clicks. We're here for the people who want to understand the systems that shape our lives. Benefit number 8. Free college, and I mean free. No tuition. Not low tuition. Not income-based tuition. $0. Norwegian public universities charge a semester fee of about $55 to $85 to cover student union services and administrative costs. That's it. Medicine, law, engineering, doesn't matter. If you get in, you go. And here's the part that Americans always trip over. But don't only rich kids get into those schools? Nope. Norway has 46% tertiary education attainment, nearly identical to the US at 48%. The difference isn't access. It's debt. Norwegian students graduate and become teachers, social workers, and researchers without spending 20 years in financial purgatory. American students graduate and become whatever pays off the loans fastest. Benefit number 9. The pension system that doesn't require a stock market miracle. Norway has a two-tier pension system, a guaranteed public pension funded by taxes, and a mandatory employer pension on top of that. The average Norwegian retiree receives about 66% of their working income in retirement. The average American? We're at 50 to 55% if Social Security still exists, and that's assuming you also saved aggressively in a 401k that didn't collapse during a recession. But here's the beautiful part. The Norwegian pension is not solely tied to the stock market. It's backstopped by the government pension fund Global, a sovereign wealth fund worth $1.6 trillion built from oil revenue. Every Norwegian citizen is technically a millionaire on paper. The fund is worth about $300,000 per capita, and it generates returns that stabilize the pension system for generations. We don't have that. We have a 401k and a prayer. Benefit number 10, the lifetime security health system. Okay, you knew this was coming, but I need you to hear the specifics. Norway has universal healthcare. But it's not free, it's prepaid through taxes. Here's what that gets you. Doctor visits, $20 to $30 copay, capped at $250 per year. After that, everything is free. Prescriptions, subsidized. Capped at $250 per year out of pocket. Hospital stays, free. Surgeries, free. Cancer treatment, free. Mental health care, covered. The total per capita healthcare spending in Norway is about $8,700 annually, with the vast majority covered through taxes, roughly $6,500 to $7,000 per person funded publicly. The average American's total healthcare spending is $13,500 per capita, and that includes both what we pay in taxes for Medicare/Medicaid and our private insurance premiums, co-pays, and out-of-pocket costs. And here's the American nightmare that doesn't exist in Norway: medical bankruptcy. About 60 to 66% of U.S. bankruptcies involve medical debt. In Norway, that number is 0. Not because Norwegians don't get sick. Because the system doesn't allow illness to destroy you financially. Now, I know what half of you are thinking: this sounds great, but Norway is tiny. They have oil money. This would never work in America. Let's address that. Population: Norway has 5.5 million people. But these same systems exist in Germany, 83 million, France, 67 million, and Japan, 125 million. Scale is a logistics problem, not a philosophical one. Oil money: Norway's oil fund is massive, but the social programs predate the fund. These benefits were built in the 1950s and 60s, before the oil boom. The oil made them richer, not possible. Homogeneity: Norway is 85% ethnically Norwegian, but Sweden, Denmark, and Finland have more diverse populations and nearly identical systems. And before you say, still more homogeneous than the US, Canada is pulling this off with comparable diversity. Here's the real question: do we want these systems, or do we want the excuses? Because the data is clear. Countries with strong social safety nets have lower violent crime rates: Norway, 0.6 homicides per 100,000 people versus US, 6.8 per 100,000. That's more than 11 times higher in America. Higher social mobility: Norway ranks number 2 globally on the Social Mobility Index with a score of 83.6. The US ranks number 27 with 74.0. A poor kid in Norway is roughly twice as likely to escape poverty. Better health outcomes: life expectancy 83 versus 77, lower infant mortality, lower maternal mortality. Norway wins every category. Higher reported happiness: 2025 World Happiness Report. Norway number 7 with a score of 7.25, US number 24 at 6.72. We have the wealth. America's GDP per capita is $81,632. Norway's is $99,266, but not by an insurmountable margin. We have the resources. What we don't have is the political will to treat security as a right instead of a luxury. So here's the reveal I promised at the start, the number that explains everything. If you took every social benefit I just described and calculated its value to the average Norwegian family, you'd arrive at roughly $18,000 to $28,000 per year in services, security, and direct payments that American families have to either pay for privately or go without. And that's a conservative estimate from OECD data on social expenditure per household. That's not a new car every year. But it's a safety net. It's healthcare that doesn't bankrupt you. It's childcare that costs less than rent. It's education without crushing debt. It's a year with your newborn without choosing between bonding and bills. And that's not a gift. That's a system. A series of choices a society made about what matters. Most people will watch this video, feel that weird mix of anger and hopelessness, and click away. But if you're still here, if you made it to the end, you're part of the 1% who actually care about how the world works. You're not looking for outrage. You're looking for answers. And that's exactly who we make these investigations for. Welcome to the team. Next up, Norway's prison system and why their luxury prisons have a recidivism rate that makes America's tough on crime approach look like a factory for creating repeat offenders. I'll see you in the next investigation.